Hello there, and may the 4th be with you. Now, back in 2021, when the Book of Boba Fett first released, I had not yet started my YouTube channel, and yet I was still so just disappointed by what I saw on screen that to an audience of nobody, I decided to rewrite the show and try and make it better to no one other than myself. Well, now finally that rewrite gets to crawl out of the Sarlacc pit of time and taste the twin-sunned light of day.
Gaming cookie guy!
Entertainment.
I think my biggest frustration with this show at the time was that I never really got a sense of who Boba Fett was. And I feel like it's really important to get to see his character arc throughout the season. Sure, Boba Fett is a character that we all know, we at least know the name of, we know the iconic imagery of, but is it a character that we really got to know, who this is? Sure, maybe for diehard fans, but I feel like most people don't really get to know what Boba Fett is all about aside from looking cool. And sure, looking cool is a perfect trait for a side character, but carry a show, it does not. And so my main goal going into making this rewrite was trying to start Boba Fett out in a place of coldness. This is a bounty hunter. This is a man who was born into war and has spent his entire life fighting for himself and for the highest bidder. And I'd like him to end more or less where the original show had him, as more of a leader who cares for his people and his planet and his community. Well, let's see how I did and go episode by episode into my rewrite of the Book of Boba Fett. We're going to go ahead and go through my version of the show, all in chronological order, starting with the very scene prophesied by Patton Oswalt in Parks and Rec.
Pan down from the twin suns of Tatooine. We are now close on the mouth of the Sarlacc pit. After a beat, the gloved Mandalorian armor gauntlet of Boba Fett grabs onto the sand.
With his armor taken from him by the Jawas, the Tusken Raiders are able to overwhelm Boba Fett and take him captive. Now, unlike the original show, I would like to give Boba some people to talk to aside from Rodians and Tuskens, people that us, the audience, can understand. People that he can have a conversation with. Tell him how much he hates this planet. Tell them how much he can't wait to leave. Kind of set up who he is at the beginning of the show so we can compare it with where he's at the end. But these people don't just serve to show us who Boba Fett is, they also help him plan the arc of this episode, which is an escape plan. Now, this will not be Boba Fett's escape plan. He is not leading this daring mission because I want to reinforce this. He is not a leader at this point. He's good at following other people's orders. And so following this other captive's lead, they make an escape attempt, but the plan fails spectacularly with all of them except Boba Fett dying in the process. Boba Fett now assumes they'll just execute him, but no, they have something else in mind for him. We open episode 2 with a small party of Tusken Raiders, including the Chieftain and Boba Fett, overlooking a factory placed in the middle of the desert. The Chieftain puts some binoculars up to Boba Fett's eyes, and he finally sees what he and his fellow captors were for. This is a factory run by the Pikes, and it is using forced Tusken Raider labor. And so the whole thing is they were capturing people to help free their fellow people who were captured. It's a ends justifies the means kind of situation. And this at least is something Boba Fett can understand. It's something he can get behind. He's used to making a deal in exchange for his fighting prowess. So he agrees to help them on the condition that they in turn help him find his armor and find a ship so he can get his life back. And so a deal is struck. And most of the rest of this episode is a pretty familiar training montage type of thing we've seen, with Boba Fett teaching the Tusken Raiders how to use blasters, intercut with scenes of them raiding Pike depots. And it also has the Tusken Raiders teaching Boba Fett about their way of life, the ways of the Dune Sea, as Boba Fett kind of is able to overcome his initial biases towards these so-called sand people. Maybe he's able to overcome those biases a little too much when it comes to the Chieftain, if you know what I'm talking about. And at this point, I want to point out, I wrote this in 2021. This is before I saw Dune Part 2. Granted, it's after I saw Dune Part 1. So, who copied who? Who's to say? Anyway, this episode concludes with Boba Fett forging his own gaffy stick, a symbol of his assimilation into this tribe and family. Episode 3 is our big early season battle. This is our big factory episode. There's lots of action in this one where we get to see Boba Fett show off what made him such a legend in the first place, as he is just mowing down Pikes in this fight. And it is towards the end of this fight and this episode that I want to tease something that'll come back later in the season. I want to bring out one of the new super droidicas and show just how unstoppable these things are. Like, it helps the audience setting these things up early so that later on, when we see 2 of them, we know how much trouble we're in. Absolutely no projectile is working on getting through the shields of this massive droid until finally the Tusken chieftain takes her gaffy stick and is able to pierce the shield, causing a chain reaction, making the super droidica blow up. Of course, an explosion at that close range is never good, and the Tusken chieftain perishes in this sacrifice of her life. And so we now have a beloved leader dead, this newly freed band of Tusken Raiders, as well as the war party they got, all looking to Boba Fett for leadership, something he has never really had to do before. In the wake of the chieftain's death, this is someone that Boba Fett had grown pretty close with over however long he was with them. Boba Fett, with his newfound leadership and his newfound power, declares an all-out war against the Pike Syndicate. Now, at this point, yes, Boba Fett is in charge, but it's clear that he's not ready to lead. He leads his own people to suffer and die during this period as he madly pursues vengeance and declares no quarter. The Pikes finally call up their ace. They call in Cad Bane, who is able to rally the Pikes and decimate Boba Fett's forces, recapturing so many of them. At this point, Boba Fett could choose to retreat. He could choose to negotiate. He could choose to do something else tactical, but no, he keeps blindly fighting, and he loses everyone. All his remaining tribe is captured, leaving him alone. He is able to escape, perhaps using his better knowledge than Cad Bane of this planet, of the Dune Sea, to get away. But now he is at a serious low point. He has just lost everyone, and it is this point when he comes across the body of Fennec Shand in the desert. Episode 5 is a bit of a slowdown compared to the fast-paced action we've had the last couple episodes. It begins with Boba and Fennec in recovery, with Boba Fett floating in a Bacta-tank, Fennec Shand getting these cybernetic enhancements, and Boba's kind of reflecting on his past mistakes. Fennec Shand is thankful to Boba Fett for saving her life, and they talk for a bit. And this is where we begin to see that change in Boba Fett, as he is regretful for how he just led his people to ruin, and he is determined to save them, but not in the same blind, rage-filled way he did before. He knows if he's truly going to put up a fight against the Pikes, he has to be smart. He has to do this with money, power, influence, and he also knows he needs his armor. Cut to the opening title card, The Book of Boba Fett, with that clip they showed at the end of Mandalorian Season 2, because now we are caught up to the present moment. Well, it's still long ago in a galaxy. I guess, like, comparatively it's present, it's still a ways back. Boba Fett and Fennec Shand have their council with the heads of the other Tatooine crime families, and they form a reluctant peace on the condition that Boba Fett conquers the Rancor, something they assume will just be a death sentence anyway. But to their surprise, Boba Fett is able to tame the beast, and at first he does this by fighting it. He fights against the Rancor, and it is clear he is going to lose this fight, if not his life. And finally, Boba Fett, reflecting on all the episodes that have come before, he realizes that fighting might not be the way to win this. And so he takes off his armor. He outstretches his hand. He approaches with trust and mercy, and the Rancor respects him for it. He earns that from the Rancor. And if we really need an episode of The Mandalorian, like, spilled into our season of the Book of Boba Fett, I guess this episode can be it. Like, Mando's off doing whatever he does, and by the end of that, he visits Tatooine because, like, oh, I need a ship, but I need money for the ship. Oh, Fennec Shan's offering me money for the ship. I just gotta help her do some stuff. All right, cool. Back to our regularly scheduled poodoo. We open episode 7 with the attempt on Boba Fett's life at the hands of Chrysanthemum, or Pause. I'm not sure how Wookiee anatomy works. But with the help of the Mandalorian, Boba Fett is able to defeat this intruder. And just as he's about to exact his revenge, he stops himself. He calms down and he speaks with the Wookiee and discovers he's a lot like himself. He's a warrior for hire. He's been a warrior all his life. He was paid to assassinate Boba Fett by the mayor of Mos Espa, who is in the pocket of the Pikes. Boba Fett strikes a deal with Chrysanthemum. He knows how these people work. He was him. He gives him a counteroffer, and they agree to work together. And so our newly formed band of Boba Fett, Din Djarin, Fennec Shan, and Chrysanthemum all go to City Hall, only to discover that the mayor is not there. He cleared out of town days ago. They interrogate the droid secretary and learn that the Pikes are planning an all-out attack to completely level the city of Mos Espa and build it back into a new spaceport that they can use on spice trade. At hearing this, Boba Fett drags the droid secretary through the main street of Mos Espa and tells all the people gathered what is planned for their city with full knowledge and cooperation of their mayor. Boba Fett tells the people, you might not want to fight, but if you want to keep your homes, if you want to save your town, you will have to band together against the Pikes. And with the mayor's seat clearly vacant, Boba Fett takes it upon himself to lead them, not as a conqueror, not as a crime lord, but as a protector. He will be their armor. We end this penultimate episode with Boba Fett preparing the people of Mos Espa for battle as we get our next appearance of Cad Bane. He has been sent as an envoy to Boba Fett to negotiate on behalf of the Pikes. And they talk as only two old rivals, frenemies could. Cad Bane tells Boba Fett, he levels with him. He says, hey, if you stay in this fight, you're gonna die. Why are you doing this? Pikes not only offer Boba Fett a way out of this conflict, a way to save himself, but they also offer him a substantial amount of credits. And Cad Bane tells Boba, like, hey, the man I knew would never turn down a way to save his own skin in a coming conflict. And Boba says he's right, but the man he knew died in the Sarlacc pit. And this is it. This is episode 8. This is our big final season finale, the battle for Mos Espa. The Pikes attack in full force as Boba Fett, Mando, and the people of Mos Espa do their best to hold them off for as long as they can. And they're able to hold their line pretty well until the forces of the other crime families abandon their bargain with Boba Fett and join the fight on the side of the Pikes. But our side, they had a plan. They weren't just stalling for nothing. With the vast majority of the Pikes being used on this assault, there wasn't as many guarding the factory. And so Chrysanthemum and the Rancor were easily able to free all of the Tusken Raiders and get them back in time to join the fight. But the tide of battle turns once more when the Pikes roll out 2 more of their super droidicas. I told you they were coming back. These droidicas were intended to be the instruments that leveled the entire city of Mos Espa, and they get straight to work. They cause a lot of property damage. Now, the Rancor is able to disable one, but in turn, the Rancor is injured and takes itself out of the fight, and there is 1 more super droidica to deal with. Not even the Darksaber is enough to get through the shielding on this droid, and at this point, Boba Fett knows exactly what he has to do. Boba Fett, who at this point has only ever been in it for himself. He follows the selfless example of the chieftain before him. He takes up his gaffy stick, and he pierces the super droidica, causing it to explode. However, the difference between Boba Fett and the chieftain before him is she wasn't wearing Beskar armor, so Boba Fett is just able to survive this. And now it's just a matter of rounding up the remaining fighters, cleaning up this battle. It is during this that we get the final showdown between Cad Bane and Boba Fett. Bane tells Fett that, hey, he gets paid either way. He doesn't need to win this battle. He doesn't need to kill Boba Fett. He's just there for a paycheck. It's nothing personal. Boba Fett asks him if he's so sure about that. Maybe he should check in with his bosses and see just how secured that bag is. And then we cut to see what Fennec Shand has been up to this whole episode. She has been assassinating the heads of the other families. There is now nobody left to pay off Cad Bane. And now that there's no more money in it, contract's over. Boba Fett tells Cad Bane, hey, just get out of here. There's no use for bounty hunters on Tatooine anymore. Cad Bane's almost sad. Like, this was all dispassionate. This was all just for the money. But if there was anyone he wanted to fight with, just give it one last good showdown, it was his old rival Boba Fett. But he's pragmatic to a fault. He turns to go. And that is when Boba Fett shoots him in the back. Because hell yeah, sure, Boba Fett is like turning over a new leaf or whatever, but he's still a killer underneath that armor, and he had an old score to settle. He might be our protagonist, but Boba Fett is still not a hero. And with that chapter closed, finally, the battle is over and the city is saved, and we get to see Citizen of Mos Espa and Tusken Raider alike celebrate their victory under the new leadership of their daimyo, Boba Fett. And that is it. That closes the Book of Boba Fett. I hope you enjoyed my version of the story. I do apologize if you like weirdly slow car chases. I couldn't find a place for them in my version. But if you like them, just watch the original. Please let me know in the comments if you were given carte blanche to do whatever you wanted with a Boba Fett story. What would you do? Because I feel like when it comes to Boba Fett, what the fans do is always cooler anyway. Please remember to like and subscribe for more. I will see you in the next one, and may the Force be with you always.